The ship Independence moved slowly through the purple clouds of Veltar's atmosphere. Commander Jake Harrison stood at the bridge window, watching the alien world grow larger below them. 3 years of travel had brought them to this moment. The first meeting between humans and the Kithara. "Sir, they're sending another message," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. Jake walked over to the communication desk. The translator worked well enough, but the Kithara language was still strange to human ears. It sounded like wind moving through tall grass, with clicks and soft whistles mixed in. "Tell them we're ready to land," Jake said, "and remind them we come in peace." The Independence touched down on a platform made of some kind of smooth, white stone. Jake could see the Kithara waiting for them through the window. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that looked like it was made of tiny scales. The scales changed color as he watched, green to blue to silver. "Remember the briefing," Jake told his team as they prepared to leave the ship. "No sudden moves. Keep your hands visible and don't stare." Dr. Lisa Martinez picked up her medical bag. "What if someone gets hurt?" "Then we deal with it carefully," Jake said. "We don't know how they handle injury or sickness." The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Jake stepped out first, followed by Lisa and 2 other crew members. The air was warm and smelled like flowers, but different flowers than any on Earth, sweet but sharp. The Kithara moved toward them. Their leader was obvious. Older, with darker scales and small metal decorations on his arms. He moved with the smooth grace of a dancer. "I am Elder Vexton," the leader said in heavily accented English. "You are welcome on Veltar." "Thank you." Jake replied, "I'm Commander Jake Harrison. This is Dr. Lisa Martinez and my crew." The greeting ceremony was long and formal. The Kithara seemed to have rules for everything. How to stand, how to move, how to speak. Jake did his best to follow along, but he couldn't help noticing one of the younger Kithara. She stood a little behind the others. Her scales were a pretty blue-green color, but they kept flickering to different shades. More importantly, she was favoring her left leg. Not badly, but enough for Jake to notice. The ceremony moved from the landing platform to a huge building made of the same white stone. Inside, the floors were smooth as glass, and the walls curved up to meet a ceiling that seemed to glow with soft light. All the Kithara moved across the floor like they were floating, all except the young female Jake had noticed. She walked more carefully, putting less weight on her left leg. Elder Vexton led them through several rooms, each more impressive than the last. He talked about trade agreements and mutual benefits. Jake nodded and asked the right questions, but part of his attention kept drifting to the limping Kithara. She was introduced as Zara, one of the junior diplomats. When she spoke, her voice was softer than the others, more musical, but Jake noticed she kept shifting her weight, trying to find a comfortable position. The formal talks went on for hours. Jake learned about Kithara technology, their art, their history. They were an old race, much older than humans. They had been traveling between stars when Earth was still covered in ice, but they were also very formal, very controlled. Every word seemed planned. Every gesture had meaning. It was impressive, but also a little cold. When the official meeting finally ended, Jake found himself walking through a garden area with crystal formations and plants that seemed to sing in the wind. Most of the Kithara had left, but Zara was still there, sitting on a bench near a fountain. Jake walked over to her. Up close, he could see her scales were actually quite beautiful. They reflected the light from the fountain, creating tiny rainbows across her skin. "You hurt?" he asked. Keeping his voice gentle, Zara's scales suddenly shifted to a bright gold color. Jake remembered from the briefing that gold meant surprise or alarm. Then they settled to a dull amber shade. "No, human," she said, but her voice was sad. "The beast inside is stirring." Jake sat down on the bench, being careful to give her space. "What does that mean?" Zara looked at him for a long moment. Her scales shifted again, this time to deeper shades of blue and purple. "You would not understand. Your people do not have such ... complications." "Try me," Jake said. "I might understand. More than you think." She was quiet for a while, watching the fountain. The water made soft musical sounds as it fell. Finally, she spoke again. Every few generations, some of us change. We become something else, something from our past. She touched her left leg carefully. It starts slowly, a limp, then worse. Change. How? We become what we were before we learned to build cities and make peace. We become the hunters, the predators, the beasts that our ancestors fought to control. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. And there's no way to stop it? Zara's scales darkened to almost black. No, when the change is complete, we are sent away. To Morden, the dead moon. There we live out our days as animals, no longer Cathara. That's horrible. It is the way, Zara said, but she didn't sound convinced. It has always been the way. Jake wanted to ask more questions, but he could see she was upset. Her scales kept shifting between dark colors, and she was holding her left leg stiffly. How long? He asked quietly. Until the change is complete? Perhaps a month, maybe less. She stood up carefully. I should go? The others will wonder where I am? Wait, Jake said. Is there anything that helps? Any treatment? Zara looked at him with something that might have been hope. No, we have tried everything. The change cannot be stopped. She walked away, her limp more noticeable now. Jake watched her go, his mind racing. He was a military man, trained to solve problems. And this felt like a problem that could be solved. Back on the Independence that night, Jake called a meeting with his senior staff. So let me get this straight, said Captain Roy Bennett. Some of them turned into monsters? That's not what she said, Jake replied. She said they change back into what they used to be. Their ancestors, Dr. Martinez leaned forward. From an evolutionary standpoint, that's fascinating. A genetic throwback of some kind. It's not our problem, said Bennett. We're here to set up trade agreements, not to get involved in their internal affairs, but if we could help, we can't. And we shouldn't try. Bennett's voice was firm. The last thing we need is to accidentally start a war on our first contact mission. Jake nodded, but he wasn't convinced. He kept thinking about Zara sitting by the fountain, her scales dark with sadness and fear. She was facing a terrible fate, and her people had just accepted it. That night, Jake lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling. He thought about the Limp, about the way Zara had looked when she talked about becoming a beast. He thought about the month she had left before the change became complete. Humans didn't just accept things. They fought. They looked for solutions. They refused to give up. Maybe that was exactly what was needed here, outside his window. The alien stars of Veltar's sky looked down on the Independence. Tomorrow would bring more formal meetings, more careful diplomacy. But Jake was already making plans of his own. He had noticed her limp, and he wasn't going to let her face this alone. The next 3 days passed in a blur of meetings and careful conversations. Jake learned about Cathara art, their science, their complex social structure. But every chance he got, he looked for Zara. She was always there, standing quietly behind. The elder diplomats. Her limp was getting worse. Jake could see it even when she tried to hide it. And her scales were changing too. They were thicker now, more pronounced. The smooth, almost silky look was becoming rougher, more like armor. On the 4th day, Jake found his chance. The formal sessions had ended early, and most of the Cathara had gone to prepare for an evening ceremony. Jake slipped away from his own team and found Zara in the same garden where they had first talked. She was sitting by a different fountain, this one surrounded by plants that glowed with soft pink light. Her left leg was stretched out in front of her, and she was rubbing it with both hands. Getting worse? Jake asked as he approached. Zara looked up, startled. Her scales flashed gold again, then settled to a tired gray. Commander Harrison, you should not be here alone. Why not? Because I am becoming dangerous. She held up her hands. Her fingernails, which had been neat and short 3 days ago, were now longer and pointed. They looked sharp enough to cut. The change is accelerating. Jake sat down carefully, staying just out of reach. Tell me about it. Help me understand. Zara was quiet for a long moment. Then she began to speak, her voice soft and sad. Long ago, before we built cities or learned to make peace, My people were different. We were hunters, predators, we had claws and teeth and strength that could tear through stone. We were the apex species on our world. What happened? We evolved. We learned to think beyond the hunt. We developed technology, art, philosophy, we became civilized. Her scales shifted to a darker shade. But the old genes remained, hidden, waiting. Jake watched her carefully. And now they're waking up in you. Yes, every few generations, someone is born carrying more of the old genetic markers. When we reach a certain age, usually around 30 of your years, the change begins. She touched her leg again. First the bones start to reshape. Then the muscles, then the mind. Your mind is changing too? Zara nodded slowly. I can feel it, the way I think about things. The way I see other people. Yesterday, when Elder Vexton spoke harshly to a young assistant, I wanted to... She stopped, looking frightened. What? I wanted to challenge him. To fight him. To show him that he could not treat others that way. Her scales turned almost black. These are not Cathara thoughts. These are beast thoughts. Jake felt his heart racing. But you didn't act on them. No, not yet. But each day it gets harder to control. She stood up, wincing as she put weight on her left leg. Soon I will be too dangerous to be around others. Then I will be sent to Morden, the dead moon you mentioned. Yes, it is where all the changed ones go. There they live out their days, as animals, hunting and fighting until they die. Jake stood up too. That's not right. You're not an animal. I will be. Zara's voice was flat, accepting. It is the way of things. No, it's not. Jake's voice was firm. There has to be another way. Zara looked at him with something like pity. You are kind, Commander, but you do not understand. This has been happening for thousands of years. If there was another way, we would have found it. Jake was about to argue when he heard footsteps. Dr. Martinez appeared around a corner, looking worried. There you are, she said to Jake. Captain Bennett is looking for you. Jake saw Zara tense up. Her scales shifted to a defensive brown color, and her new claws extended slightly. It's okay, Jake said quickly. Lisa, this is Zara. She's one. Of the diplomats? Lisa smiled and stepped forward. Nice to meet you. But Zara backed away, her scales now flashing warning colors. I should go. Wait, Jake said, but she was already walking away as fast as her injured leg would allow. What was that about? Lisa asked. Jake watched Zara disappear into the building. She's sick, or changing, I'm not sure which. Changing how? Jake told Lisa everything Zara had shared with him. The doctor listened with growing interest and concern. Genetic throwback, Lisa said when he finished. That's incredible and terrible. Can we help her? I don't know. I'd need to examine her, run some tests. But Jake, you know what Captain Bennett said about getting involved. I know, but I can't just stand by and watch her suffer. They walked back to the Independence together. Jake's mind was spinning with possibilities. If this was a genetic condition, maybe human medicine could help. They had treatments for genetic disorders that didn't exist when humans first left Earth. That night, Jake found Lisa in the ship's medical bay, reading everything she could find about genetic throwbacks and evolutionary biology. Find anything. Useful? He asked. Maybe. There are some Earth animals that show similar patterns. Certain dog breeds that occasionally produce puppies that look like their Volf ancestors. Some domesticated cats that revert to wildcat behavior. Can it be treated? Sometimes. It depends on what triggers the change. Stress, diet, environmental factors. If we could identify the trigger... She trailed off, looking thoughtful. What? I need to see her, examine her, take some samples. She's afraid of being around people. She thinks she's becoming dangerous. Is she? Jake thought about it. I don't think so. Not yet, but she's changing. Her nails are like claws now. And she said her thoughts are becoming more aggressive. Lisa nodded. Classic fight or flight response. Her body is producing different hormones, changing her brain chemistry. But if we could stabilize that... You think you can help her? I think I can try, but we need to be careful. If the other Cathara find out what we're doing, it could cause problems. Jake made his decision. Let's do it. The next day, Jake arranged to meet Zara again. This time, he brought Lisa with him, but he made sure to approach slowly and explain everything. Dr. Martinez is a medical doctor, he told Zara. She might be able to help. Zara's scales flashed with multiple colors: hope, fear, doubt. Your medicine cannot help with this. It is not a disease. It is what I am becoming. But what if it doesn't have to be? Lisa asked gently. What if there's a way to control the change? That is impossible. Maybe not. Will you let me examine you, just to see what's happening? Zara looked between them for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. Very well, but it will change nothing. Lisa's examination was thorough, but gentle. She checked Zara's blood pressure, listened to her heart. Examined the changes in her leg and hands. Through it all, Zara sat quietly, her scales a neutral gray. Interesting, Lisa said finally. Your bone density is increasing, your muscle mass is growing, but your vital signs are stable. What does that mean? It means you're not dying. You're adapting. Your body is changing, but it's a controlled change, not random mutation. Zara's scales shifted to a cautious blue. So maybe we can work with it instead of against it. Maybe we can help you control the change instead of letting it control you. For the first time since Jake had met her, Zara's scales brightened to a warm gold. Hope. You really think you can help me? I think we can try, Lisa said. But we'll need to be careful. And we'll need to work together. Jake felt a surge of satisfaction. This was what humans did best. They didn't accept impossible situations. They found solutions, but he also felt a chill of worry. Captain Bennett had made it clear that they shouldn't get involved in Kithara affairs. And Jake had a feeling that helping Zara was going to be more complicated than any of them realized. Still, looking at the hope in Zara's changing eyes, he knew they had to try. Dr. Martinez worked through the night in her lab aboard the Independence. The blood samples she had taken from Zara were unlike anything she had ever seen. The cells were changing, adapting, becoming something new. Jake found her there the next morning, surrounded by data screens and test results. What did you find? He asked, setting down a cup of coffee beside her. Lisa rubbed her tired eyes. It's not a disease, Jake. It's not even really a throwback. It's evolution. What do you mean? Look at this. She pulled up a genetic map on her screen. These aren't random mutations. They're organized changes. Like her DNA has a built-in program that's activating. Jake studied the colorful patterns on the screen. So she's not sick? No, her body is upgrading itself. Stronger bones, denser muscles, improved reflexes. Even her brain is changing. New neural pathways are forming. Then why do the other Kithara treat it like a curse? Lisa was quiet for a moment. I think they're afraid. Change is scary, especially when you can't control it. But we can control it? Maybe. I've been running simulations. The trigger seems to be stress hormones combined with certain mineral imbalances. If we can regulate those... She was interrupted by an alert from the ship's communication system. Captain Bennett's voice came over the intercom. All senior staff. To the bridge, now. Jake and Lisa hurried to the bridge, where they found Bennett looking grim. On the main screen was Elder Vexton, his scales a dark, angry red. Commander Harrison, the Elder Kithara said, his voice cold. We need to discuss your inappropriate behavior. Jake felt his heart sink. What behavior? You have been meeting privately with Zara. You have been asking questions about matters that do not concern humans. I was just trying to understand your culture better. You were interfering in private affairs. Zara is afflicted with the change. She is dangerous. You will have no further contact with her. Bennett stepped forward. Elder Vexton, I assure you that Commander Harrison meant no harm. He was simply being friendly. Friendship with the changed is forbidden. It puts everyone at risk. The screen went dark. Bennett turned to Jake, his face red with anger. What the hell have you been doing? Jake explained everything. The meetings. With Zara, the medical examination, what they had discovered about her condition. Bennett listened with growing frustration. I specifically told you not to get involved in their internal affairs. Sir, this isn't just an internal affair. We might be able to help her. That's not our job. Our job is to establish trade relations, not to play doctor with alien genetics. Dr. Martinez spoke up. Captain, what we've discovered could be important. This isn't a disease or a curse. It's a natural evolutionary process. I don't care what it is. We're not getting involved. But Jake wasn't ready to give up. What if Zara chose to come aboard the Independence? As a guest, not a patient? Absolutely not. Sir, the Cathara are an advanced species. They have technology we need. But they also have problems we might be able to solve? Isn't that what diplomacy is about? Mutual benefit? Bennett was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. The answer is no. We maintain neutrality. End of discussion. Jake left the bridge feeling defeated. But as he walked through the ship's corridors, he couldn't stop thinking about Zara. She was facing a terrible fate, and he had the tools to help her. How could he just walk away? That afternoon, Jake found a way to send a private message to Zara. The Cathara had excellent communication technology, but they didn't seem to monitor personal conversations closely. Meet me at the fountain tonight, his message said. I have something important to tell you. Zara was waiting when he arrived, but she looked different. Her limp was worse and her scales had a rough, almost armor-like texture now. Her claws were longer and her teeth were noticeably sharper. You should not be here, she said when she saw him. Elder Vexton has forbidden contact between us. I know, but I had to see you. Jake sat down carefully, staying just out of reach. Lisa found something important about your condition. Zara's scales flickered with interest. What? It's not a curse, it's evolution. Your body is improving itself, becoming stronger and smarter. That cannot be true. The changed become animals. Do you feel like an animal? Zara was quiet for a moment. No, I feel ... more aware, more alive, but also more dangerous. What if the dangerous part is just because you're fighting the change? What if you accepted it instead? I do not understand. Jake took a deep breath. Come with me to the Independence. Let Lisa help you. Zara's scales flashed multiple colors, surprise, hope, fear. That is impossible. I am forbidden from leaving the diplomatic compound. What if you chose to leave? What if you asked for asylum? Asylum? Protection? Safe haven? If you asked to stay with the humans, we would have to consider it. Zara stared at him. You would do that? Risk conflict with my people? I would try. For several minutes, they sat in silence. Jake could see Zara thinking, weighing options. Her scales shifted through different colors as she considered. If I did this, she said finally, what would happen to me? I don't know. But it would be better than being sent to Morden. And if your doctor cannot help me, then at least we would have tried. Zara stood up, moving carefully. I need time to think. Of course. But don't take too long. I can see the change accelerating. She nodded and walked away, her limp more pronounced than ever. The next morning, Jake was woken by an urgent message. Zara was at the Independence landing bay, requesting permission to come aboard. Jake rushed to the bay, where he found Zara talking to the security guards. She looked tired and frightened, but determined. I request asylum, she said when she saw Jake. Protection from the human government. Are you sure about this? Yes, I would rather die trying to stay myself than live as a beast. Jake made the call to Captain Bennett. The captain was furious, but he couldn't legally refuse an asylum request without proper review. This is going to cause problems, Bennett warned. I know, sir. But it's the right thing to do. Zara was brought aboard and taken to the medical bay. Dr. Martinez began her treatment immediately, adjusting the ship's atmosphere and giving Zara supplements to balance her mineral levels. The effect was almost immediate. Within hours, Zara's limp began to improve. Her scales, while still thick and armor-like, stopped changing so rapidly. Most importantly, she seemed more relaxed, more like herself. How do you feel? Lisa asked. Better, Zara said, wonder in her voice. The pain is less, and the angry thoughts, they are quieter. The change isn't stopping, Lisa explained, but it's slowing down. We're giving your body time to adapt gradually instead of all at once. Jake felt a surge of hope. So it's working? It's working, but this is just the beginning. We need to understand more about the process, find ways to help Zara control it. Their celebration was interrupted by an alarm. Captain Bennett's voice came over the intercom. All hands to battle stations. We have Cathara warships approaching. Jake rushed to the bridge, where he found Bennett staring at the main screen. 3. Sleek Cathara ships were moving toward the Independence. They want Zara back, Bennett said grimly. We can't give her up, she asked for asylum. And now they're prepared to take her by force. Jake looked at the approaching ships and felt his heart sink. He had hoped to help one person, but now he might have started a war, but then he thought about Zara in the medical bay, finally free from pain and fear. Whatever happened next, they had proven that the change could be controlled. Now they just had to survive long enough to share that knowledge. The bridge of the Independence was tense with silence. On the main screen, the 3 Cathara warships hung in space like silver daggers pointed at the human ship. They're demanding we return Zara immediately, reported Lieutenant Amy Foster from the communications station. Captain Bennett looked grim. What exactly did they say? Elder Vexton says we have stolen property of the Cathara people. He demands we return her or face the consequences. Jake stepped forward. She's not property. She asked for asylum. Try explaining that to 3 warships. Bennett said. How long until they're in weapons range? 20 minutes, sir. Bennett turned to Jake. This is your mess, Commander. How do we get out of it? Before Jake could answer, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Commander Harrison to the medical bay. Emergency. Jake ran through the corridors, his mind racing. When he reached the medical bay, he found Dr. Martinez looking worried and Zara sitting on the examination table, her scales flashing rapid colors. What's wrong? Jake asked. The stress of the situation is triggering her transformation again, Lisa explained. Her hormone levels are spiking. All the progress we made is reversing. Jake looked at Zara. Her scales were darker now, more like armor. Her claws had grown longer, and her eyes looked different, more intense, more dangerous. I can feel it, Zara said, her voice rougher than before. The beast is waking up again. The anger is getting stronger. We need to keep you calm, Lisa said. The stress is making everything worse. Suddenly the ship shook. The lights flickered and an alarm started blaring. All hands to battle stations, came Bennett's voice over the intercom. We are under attack. Another impact rocked the Independence. Jake grabbed the wall to steady himself, but Zara moved with perfect balance. Her transformed body was already adapting to the ship's movement. They're boarding us, came a voice from the bridge. Cathara troops are cutting through the hull. Jake's blood ran cold. They're coming for you. Zara's scales turned completely black. No, I will not go back to die on Morden. Zara, you need to stay here. Let us handle this. But Zara was already moving toward the door. You do not understand. I will not be taken. Jake followed her into the corridor. The sound of weapons fire echoed from somewhere deeper in the ship. The Cathara had broken through. This way, Jake said, leading her toward the bridge. We need to get to the captain. They made it halfway before they encountered the boarding party. 6 Cathara soldiers in black armor came around the corner, weapons raised. Jake recognized their leader immediately. It was Elder Vexton himself. Stand aside, human, Vexton said, his voice cold. We have come for the diseased one. She's not diseased, Jake said, stepping between them and Zara. And she's under human protection. Your protection means nothing. She is dangerous. She must be removed. Jake heard a low growling sound behind him. He turned to see Zara's transformation accelerating. Her scales were now completely black and ridged like armor. Her claws were long and sharp. Her teeth had become fangs, but her eyes were still intelligent, still aware. I am not diseased, Zara said, her voice a dangerous whisper. I am evolved. Elder Vexton raised his weapon. You are an abomination. You will come with us or be destroyed. No, what happened next was almost too fast to follow. Zara moved like lightning, faster than Jake had ever seen anyone move. She dodged Vexton's energy blast and struck him with her claws. The Elder's weapon went flying down the corridor. The other soldiers opened fire, but Zara was already among them. She moved like a dancer, but a deadly one. Her claws cut through their armor like paper. Her enhanced strength sent them flying into the walls. In less than 30 seconds, all 6 Cathara soldiers were down. Not dead, but unconscious or too hurt to fight. Zara stood over them, breathing hard. Her scales gradually shifted from black to a deep blue. She looked at her claws, now stained with alien blood. I did not want to hurt them, she said quietly. But I could not let them take me. Jake stared at her in amazement. You were in complete control? Yes, the beast did not take over. I used its strength, but I stayed myself. Elder Vexton groaned and tried to sit up. His scales were pale with shock and pain. Impossible, he whispered. The changed always become animals. Always. No, Zara said, kneeling beside him. We become what we choose to become. Jake helped Vexton to his feet. The elder stared at Zara with new eyes. You are still yourself, still thinking. I am more myself than I have ever been, Zara replied. The change did not make me less. It made me more. But the others, those who were sent to Morden. What? If they were not animals? Zara asked. What if they were driven mad by fear and isolation? What if they became beasts because that is what you expected them to become? Vexton's scales shifted through several colors. Jake could see the elder's worldview cracking. That cannot be true. We have records, stories, the changed always become savage. Stories told by people who were afraid, Zara said. Who sent the changed away before they could learn to control their new abilities. Captain Bennett appeared at the end of the corridor with a security team. He stopped when he saw the scene. 6 Cathara soldiers down, Zara standing over them, her claws still extended. What happened here? Bennett demanded. Zara defended herself, Jake said. And she stayed in control the whole time. Dr. Martinez arrived, carrying her medical scanner. She quickly examined the wounded Cathara soldiers. They'll be fine, she reported. Bruised and cut, but nothing serious. You held back, Jake said. To Zara, you could have killed them. I could have, Zara agreed, but I chose not to. That is what makes me different from the beasts your people fear. Elder Vexton stared at her for a long moment. His scales were cycling through different colors as he processed what had happened. There are others, he said finally. Others who have shown signs of the change. We keep them under guard, waiting for the transformation to complete. And then, you send them to Morden? Yes, it is the law. A law based on fear and misunderstanding, Zara said. What if some of them could be helped? What if they could learn to control the change as I have? Vexton looked around the corridor. At the defeated soldiers. At the humans who had risked everything to help one Cathara. At Zara herself, standing proud and strong and completely in control. The council will never accept this, he said. They will say you are an exception, a fluke. Then we will show. Then they are wrong, Zara said. We will prove that the change can be controlled. Jake felt a surge of hope. The other Cathara who are showing signs, could we help them too? I do not know, Vexton admitted, but perhaps perhaps it is time to find out. He activated his communicator and spoke to his ships. Stand down. Return to orbit. We have much to discuss. Captain Bennett looked confused. That's it? No more fighting? The fight is over, Vexton said. But the real work is just beginning. Jake looked at Zara, who was carefully retracting her claws. Her scales were returning to their normal colors, but he could see the new strength in her posture. The confidence. In her eyes, she had faced her greatest fear and overcome it. Not by running away from what she was becoming, but by embracing it and making it her own. The beast inside had not destroyed her. It had made her complete. 2 weeks after the confrontation aboard the Independence, Jake stood in a meeting room on Veltar, unlike any he had seen before. This one was not in the formal government buildings, but in an underground facility that Elder Vexton had revealed. To them, the room was filled with Cathara, But these were different from the polished diplomats Jake had first met. Some had thick, armored scales, others had claws or fangs. A few moved with the same enhanced grace that Zara now possessed. "These are the hidden ones," Vexton explained to Jake and Dr. Martinez. "Those who showed signs of the change but learned to control it before the council could send them away." Jake counted at least 20 Cathara in the room. "You've been hiding them?" "We have been protecting them," said a female Cathara with silver scales and golden claws. "I am Kira. I have been changed for 5 years." "5 years?" Dr. Martinez stepped forward with her scanner. "And you've remained in control the whole time?" "Not at first," Kira admitted. "The early days were difficult. The anger, the hunger for conflict. But we learned together. We taught each other to master the beast." Inside, Zara moved to stand beside Kira. Her own transformation was now complete but stable. Her scales were a beautiful deep blue with silver edges. Her claws were retracted but ready. Most importantly, her limp was completely gone. "How many others are there?" Zara asked. "Throughout our world?" "Perhaps hundreds. Maybe thousands. We have been building a network, helping those who change to find control instead of exile." Elder Vexton looked uncomfortable. "The council does not know about this network. If they discovered it, then it is time they learned the truth," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see a group of younger Cathara entering the room. Their scales showed the bright colors of youth, but their faces were determined. "I am Lex, son of Elder Vexton," the leader announced. "And I am tired of living in fear." Vexton's scales shifted to worried amber. "Next, you should not be here." "Father, half of my generation carries the genetic markers. We know we might change. And we refuse to accept exile as our fate." Jake felt the energy in the room shift. This was not just about helping a few individuals anymore. This was about changing an entire society. "What are you proposing?" he asked. Next looked around the room. "Revolution. Not violent, but real. We reveal the truth about the change. We show our people that evolution is not a curse." "The council will resist," Vexton warned. "They have based their power on controlling the fear of the change." "Then we replace the council," Kira said simply. Over the next hour, Jake listened as the Cathara planned their peaceful revolution. They would reveal themselves publicly. They would demonstrate that the changed could live normal lives. They would demand an end to the exile system. "What about those already on Morden?" Zara asked. "We bring them home," Nex said. "All of them. We help them learn control." Dr. Martinez had been quietly scanning the various changed Cathara in the room. Now she spoke up. "I've found something interesting. The genetic markers that cause the change are becoming more common in your population. Within a few generations, most Cathara will carry them." "What does that mean?" Vexton asked. "It means this isn't a random throwback. It's directed evolution. Your species is adapting, becoming something new, something better." Kira's scales brightened. "Better how?" "Stronger, faster, more intelligent, enhanced senses. Better reflexes. The changed Cathara I've examined are improvements on the base species in almost every measurable way." "Then why do our people fear it so much?" Nex wondered. "Because change is scary," Jake said. "Even good change. People prefer what they know, even if it's not the best thing for them." Zara moved to the center of the room. "Then we show them they have nothing to fear." The plan they developed was ambitious but simple. In 3 days, during the Festival of Unity, when all of Veltar would be watching, the hidden changed would reveal themselves. They would demonstrate their abilities. They would prove they were not monsters. Jake and his crew offered to help however they could. Captain Bennett was still nervous about human involvement, but even he admitted the situation had moved beyond simple diplomacy. "Just try not to start any actual wars," he told Jake the day of the festival. Jake stood on the platform overlooking Veltar's main plaza. Thousands of Cathara had gathered for the traditional celebrations. But today would be anything but traditional, Elder. Vexton took the speaking platform first. His scales were nervous gray, but his voice was strong. "My people," he began. Today we learn truths that have been hidden. Today we see that what we feared was actually a gift. He gestured to the side of the platform. Zara stepped forward, her enhanced form clearly visible to the crowd. Gasps and cries rose from the assembled Kithara. This is Zara, Vexton continued. She carries the change. But she has not become a beast. She has become something greater. Zara spoke to the crowd, telling her story. How she had feared the change. How the humans had helped her understand it. How she had learned to control and embrace her new abilities. I am still myself, she said. But I am also more than I was. One by one, the other changed Kithara revealed themselves. Kira with her silver scales. A male named Tor, whose muscles had grown incredibly strong. A young female whose senses had become so sharp, she could hear a whisper from across the plaza. The crowd was stunned into silence. These were not the savage beasts of their nightmares. These were their neighbors, their friends, their family members. Then the questions began. Angry voices demanding to know why they had been deceived. Frightened voices asking if the change could be stopped. Hopeful voices wondering if others could be helped. Next stepped forward to address the chaos. The old council lied to you out of fear. They sent our people to die in exile rather than help them adapt. That ends today. The revolution Jake had watched develop in the underground room now played out in the plaza. The younger Kithara led. By Nax and supported by the changed called for new leadership. Leadership that would embrace evolution instead of fearing it. It was not without conflict. Some of the older Kithara resisted. Some of the council members tried to maintain control, but the tide had turned. The truth was out, and it could not be hidden again. 3 months later, Jake stood in the same plaza, but everything was different. The new Kithara government, led by a council that included both changed and unchanged members, had established rescue missions to Morden. They had found dozens of exiled Kithara, many of whom could still be helped. Dr. Martinez had set up a medical center where newly changed Kithara could learn to control their transformations. The techniques she and Zara had developed were helping. Dozens of people each week. Zara approached Jake as he watched the bustling plaza. She moved with the fluid grace of her enhanced form, but her smile was the same warm expression he remembered from their first meeting. The Independence leaves tomorrow, she said. Double quotes. Yes, our mission here is complete, is it? Zara looked around the plaza, where changed and unchanged Kithara worked side by side. I think it is just beginning. Jake knew she was right. The humans had come to establish trade relations, but they had accomplished something much more important. They had helped an entire species overcome its fears and embrace its potential. Will you stay? Jake asked. For now, my people need me. But perhaps someday I will visit your world. I would like to see what other impossible things humans accomplish, Jake laughed. We specialize in impossible things. As the Independence prepared to depart, Jake reflected on the simple moment that had started everything. He had noticed a limp. He had asked if someone was hurt. Such a small gesture, but it had changed the course of an entire civilization. That was what humans did best. He realized. They noticed when others were in pain. And they refused to accept that nothing could be done about it. The beast inside had not been conquered, it had been embraced. And in that embrace, both Zara and her entire species had found their true strength.